Welcome to the PodoTron Network.
You know, it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, your race, religion, whatever. Chances are that the legacy of HBCUs and their graduates affect more than one aspect of your everyday life. HBCUbiquity.
Yeah. Welcome aboard.
Welcome to another episode of the new HBCUbiquity. I'm your host, Thomas Joyner Jr. Question: what do Bishop College and Paul Quinn College have in common? Now, if you answered Dallas, Texas, then that's okay, and I'll take that. But as we explore in this episode, the connection actually goes much, much deeper. Bishop College was founded in 1881 in Marshall, Texas by the Baptist Home Mission Society for the purpose of educating free blacks in East Texas. Named after Nathan Bishop, a white member of the Baptist Society who both fundraised and bequeathed $10,000 of his own money to the establishment of the institution, Bishop College was a pride of its day in Texas higher education. The college appointed its first black president, Joseph J. Rhodes, in 1929, and it moved to Dallas, Texas in 1961 after its original campus in Marshall was sold and later demolished. Notable alumni of Bishop College include NFL greats William Harris, Will Hill, and Emmett Thomas, along with Pastor Freddie Haynes and Florida A&M's legendary business school dean, Dr. Sybil Mobley. Paul Quinn College was founded a few years earlier in Waco, Texas, 1877 to be exact. Now, you may not know this, but Paul Quinn is the oldest HBCU that is still in existence west of the Mississippi. That college has had a few different names in its time. First founded as the Connectional High School and Institution, then renamed Waco College, and finally chartered by the state of Texas in 1881 as Paul Quinn College. Okay, now bear with me right quick. In 1988, Bishop College in Dallas closed its doors for good and ceased to exist. But in 1990, Paul Quinn College moved from its campus in Waco to reestablish itself on the former land and in the former buildings of Bishop College. In this episode, we'll explore that time in history and experience what it's like to shutter one HBCU to ultimately give life to another HBCU. We'll talk with Dr. Harry Robinson, President and CEO of the African American Museum in Dallas, former and last Vice President of Institutional Advancement at Bishop. We'll also talk with Ms. Nicole Wilkerson, a tech advisor and former student at Paul Quinn. Now, Ms. Wilkerson started as a freshman on the Waco campus, but ultimately graduated from the quote-unquote new campus in Dallas. So how does an HBCU simply stop existing? Also, how does an HBCU pick up and move almost 100 miles away over the summer? And why? Let's talk about that. Thank you for being a part of today's conversation, and let's get started. The new HBCUbiquity starts now. Welcome back to the new HBCUbiquity. I'm joined now by two people from the story that we're going to be telling today about Bishop College and Paul Quinn College. The first person I'm joined by is Dr. Harry Robinson, currently the director of the African American Museum in Dallas, Texas, but also the former vice president of institutional advancement at Bishop College. I'm also joined by Ms. Nicole Wilkerson, a tech expert, but also a former Paul Quinn student at both the Waco and Dallas campuses. Good afternoon, everybody. How are you today?
Good afternoon. I'm fine. Thank you.
Dr. Robinson, we'll go and get started with you first. Can you describe to us what the academic and social culture of Bishop College was like during those last 2 years?
Oh, business was on as usual. People were upbeat, very optimistic. Never thought that the school would close because we had been, we bailed out 2 or 3 times before. We just knew we weren't going to go under. So it wasn't until the rule that, this is it. I was in San Antonio at the time. I saw it on TV where the school was going to close. But people were upbeat, and it was sad after we were told that the school was going to close. But there was still some hope. And they were hoping for a while that someone was going to find some money and reopen the school.
So hold up, Dr. Robinson. You were in San Antonio when you found out over the television that the college was closing down?
Yeah, I was out of town and the news came on. We had an idea that it was going to happen, but that day when we went to bankruptcy court, and we knew we had an idea it was going to happen.
And Dr. Robinson, what was your understanding as to why this was happening?
Financial mismanagement. That's what we were told, that there was some financial mismanagement. And we knew a lot of it was political. The leadership was not a docile crowd. And it was like a power struggle, really, between the federal government and Bishop College. We went through a lot. We really went through a lot. Matter of fact, when before Dr. Curry and his lieutenants, before they left, there was a battle between Bishop and HEW, and Califano was the HEW secretary, and at one time he wouldn't see the president. So the president called Benjamin Mays, president of Morehouse, and Benny Mays told him to call, or he called Daddy King, and Daddy King called Carter, and Carter called Califano and told him to see Dr. Curry.
You said HEW. What was HEW?
That was health, education, and welfare, and it's split up into HHS and Department of Education.
Gotcha. Okay. And so with that said, if Bishop was a private school, then why was there a power struggle between the school and the federal government?
Because we got federal aid.
Okay.
Federal aid.
Which was tied to accreditation,
Student
which is tied
loans
to
and all
finances.
That kind of stuff came from HEW. Right. It was the accreditation that really did us in, because, they put us on probation, and there was the accreditation issue. And without the accreditation, you can get federal funds.
Right. And so, Dr. Robinson, what was the mood like on the campus during these last few years?
Well, somber, sometimes real feisty, upbeat. People carrying on activities like, nothing is going to happen. We'll be here. And even today, even though Bishop has closed, that spirit is still there amongst the students, amongst the alumni, because when most of the people left Bishop, all of the students seem to be doing well, the Bishop College alumni. All of the faculty members got jobs at Baylor, the community college, University of North Texas, wherever. Nobody had any problem finding jobs, and the students didn't have any problem getting into school anywhere else.
And so to skip not across town, across the state, so to speak, during that same time period, Ms. Wilkerson, what was the mood like at Paul Quinn, the culture like during this time?
In Waco, we were very upbeat. Like I said, we were very academic driven because our teachers really instilled that in us. They let us know even when we went for our orientation what they expected of us, and that was to be in class. That was to be engaging in class. Of course, we had to dress a certain way. So we took pride in how we looked. And it was just a good time. We just had a really close-knit family. Like I said, we were like a family because we didn't have that many people on campus. So like I said, most of the time in Waco was under 300 as far as living on campus. And we stuck together, and pretty much everything that we did, if we had a basketball game, everybody was there. Again, if we had classes, if we had problems, you had teachers that literally would stay after class, come up on Saturdays, Sundays, help you with your work. I mean, so they expected a lot of us, but they gave a lot too, a lot that they didn't have to give actually. So like I said, it might be a few people that might miss a couple of days just because you might be tired or something, but no, you would get a knock on the door. You had to explain why you were not in class. So it was really it was a great time. I, of course, being young, didn't appreciate it as much as I would now, or looking back on it, we talk about it now, but it was really, really a very good time as far as not just a good party time or whatever, but just a good time to be in school because you had people that actually cared about you. Now, we didn't know anything about a possible move, so that wasn't even on our minds, anything about we might be moving to Dallas. I mean, we didn't know anything about that until, it was happening.
And once it happened, how was that news received on the campus?
It was, first it was very shocking. And then by that time, my friends that I had been with, we had been there 3 years. And to be honest, my initial feeling was disappointment because I didn't know a whole lot about Bishop College, but I knew we had a close-knit kind of family type structure in Waco, and I just felt like moving to Dallas, to a bigger city, we would lose some of that, which we did, but only because it was a bigger city, more things to do, more places to go, things like that. But of course, once we got there, it was, we thought about the opportunities and things like that it was going to bring, as far as more job opportunities, and more ways we could get, I guess, more education as far as in the community and things like that. So it was shocking at first. Didn't like it, the idea, but then, like I said, as the days went on, we started embracing it. Like, hey, we're going to get better dorms. We're going to get a better campus. So we really embraced it in the end, and we were looking forward to it a lot.
And so, Ms. Wilkerson, how would you say the campus culture in Waco differ from the campus culture in Dallas?
In Dallas, again, there was so much more to do because you're moving from Dallas. I mean, from a small town with absolutely almost nothing to do except whatever we made happen. There was Baylor there, but that was a whole different, of course, ball game. But if we wasn't throwing a party, if we wasn't having a basketball game, or if we wasn't doing something, then pretty much it wasn't. We was just kind of sitting on campus, making bonds and things like that, friendships. But I got used to it. I'll put it like that once I got here. But I'm from Dallas, so I was like, I already know the places to go. I've already, I just like the smaller structure that we had. But I did. Bishop was a very nice college. My dorm room, like I said, was a whole lot better. And it was, I'm glad. I'm definitely glad that we moved.
So keeping that in mind, Dr. Robinson, how exactly did Cormac Cottrell come into the picture, and what was his role in all this?
Well, see, Cormac had been working with Paul Quinn before they moved to Dallas. Matter of fact, he started a golf tournament, and there was some famous actor or somebody who was working with him. So he had a relationship with Paul Quinn. And then he joined Bishop College's board. And at one time, I think he might have been acting chair or vice chair of the board. And of course, when Bishop closed, the property went up for auction. He bought the campus, and he told me that it was his ex-wife who kept urging him to buy that campus so it can remain in the hands of Black folks, remain a college. And she insisted that he not let anybody talk him into naming the place for him. But he bought the building. And then when Paul Quinn first came here, it was supposed to be where they would be paying for the building, but eventually he wrote it off after he sold Proline. He worked out a deal with whomever bought Proline, and the thing was wiped out. So it was like a gift to the college.
Right.
And just for listeners that may not be aware, the gentleman I'm referring to is Cormac Cottrell. He used to own a hair care product line called Proline. And what that said also, because she's always an unsung figure in this story, but with all means, shout out to Miss Isabel Cottrell for all that she did through all this.
Yes. She was very instrumental, very involved, and had a tremendous amount of influence on Cormac. And he told me that himself, that Isabel was the one who encouraged and urged him to buy that campus and to keep it as a Black college.
And so, Dr. Robinson, do you have any particular special memories or stories from that transition period during the closing, the auction, and all that?
Yes. We were the last to leave the campus. The museum was the last to leave the campus, and had developed a relationship with the bankruptcy people. And we were told that the library would be the last component they would sell. And so...
Dr. Robinson, let me just make sure I hear you correctly. The African American Museum used to be located on Bishop's campus?
Oh, the museum was founded at Bishop. I came to Bishop as the library director and the museum director in 1974.
Okay. Wow, okay.
And so I was there. We were on the lower level of the library.
Right.
And we were the last to leave because everybody else was put off campus. So we stayed there for a while until we moved to Fair Park into the radio station. But even then, they were still trying to find monies to keep Bishop open. So Reverend Harry Blake from Shreveport, who was a board member, called me and asked me to send him some pictures because they were working with Jerry Falwell to get some money. Jerry Falwell and E.B. Hill, from E.B. Hill, to get some money to save Bishop. And Falwell, I understand, Harry Blake tells us that Falwell were willing to put the money up. But most of the ministers on the board, the black ministers, didn't take too well to that. So that deal went away. But before that, while they were trying to get them to do it, Harry Blake called and asked me if I get some pictures. So I went up to the chapel, which housed the president's office and a couple of the administrators, to get a picture. And when I went up there, I noticed they had tagged the file cabinets. And I asked Jim, the little guy, I said, what are you doing here? He said, well, we're going to auction off these furnishing office equipment. So I said, what are you going to do with the contents of the file cabinet? He said, oh, it doesn't matter. Whomever buys can do whatever he wants. I said, you can't do that. That's a part of the school history. I have to get that. He said, well, you can have it. So we did a lot of collecting, got people who would help us, bought boxes, ran out of boxes, bought boxes. And we salvaged much of the later history of Bishop College. And it's in a warehouse now. I'm paying rent for it every month in a warehouse off campus. We have a lot of records for Bishop College. And it was quite trying to beat them, beat the time they were going to get to the file cabinet. So they're going to do the auction on Saturday. And this was during the week. So we had until Saturday to get everything we wanted out of the file cabinet.
Wow.
Boxes.
Wow.
So that was heartbreaking. And then later on, the stuff I read, I guess something else that really hurt me deeply was that there was a bell on the campus, and they promised they were not going to bother the bell. They told me they won't bother the bell, but they did bother the bell. They auctioned the bell off, and some guy from somewhere out of town who had a farm somewhere bought the bell and just yanked it off the base that it was on. And we said, what are you going to do with this bell? Well, he was taking it to his farm, and he was going to mount it and use it to call his cattle. It was very painful.
I can imagine. And it definitely sounds like that. Ms. Wilkerson, do you have any memories or stories from that transition time from the Paul Quinn side of moving from Waco to Dallas?
Our main thing, he done brought up that bell, and it just kind of hit my heart because that bell meant a lot to the alumni, even Paul Quinn, because whenever we had freshmen come in, we would all meet at that bell, and we all touched that bell and said a prayer and welcomed them in. I mean, it was a, very, the ceremony that we had around that bell was very touching, and it was very emotional, and it meant a lot to us. So when we lost it, it was hard. But when we left, we were like Dr. Harrison said, we were pretty much still in disbelief. We were moving and still in disbelief that it was happening. I mean, I didn't even tell my parents until later on that, this is true, we're really moving. But by then, we definitely had the space and everything. And I do remember Isabel and Dr. Cottrell and just being, in awe of them once we, knew who they were and were introduced and everything, and just happy that they would even, who would do something like this? It has nothing to do with you. You have your own, the popular hairline products and all this. So this was something he really did at the bottom of his heart, and with said at her insistence, and, not to even, for no gain of his, just to, keep it maybe in our community and with us. But I remember packing up everything, and there was a lot of talk going on. And like I said, by this time when we're actually packing, it was really, now it's exciting. Now it's anxiety going on because we hadn't seen the campus on the inside. We're thinking, well, nobody's really been in there in a few years or whatever. What is it going to look like? What is it going to be like? Just a lot of uncertainty, but mixed with excitement. So once we got there, like I said, the dorms were a lot better than the dorms we had in Waco. I don't know, some of the other colleges had also the showers where everybody shared showers, So to go to Bishop College, and now you have where you only share with your suite mate. So it's 4 people that's going to share this shower, and that's it, and like
that's nice.
It was, it was really nice. But we had our, struggles because when we first got there, I remember thinking maybe we should have waited a year and got more things together because it wasn't We didn't have electricity at first. We couldn't move. Everybody couldn't move in. The process was tedious, and some people had to, they would send letters, don't come yet. If you were out of town, like Florida, people that was coming from different California, different things like that. And then they had to get them hotels. So it was really a process. It really was. But again, by that time, we had seen the campus, almost like you're on the promised land now. So we were excited because we could actually see what this was going to turn into.
Ms. Wilkerson, did it take like a semester or a whole academic year? How long would you say that whole process took from, to finally have everybody moved in and have everything settled on campus?
I would say it took pretty much a whole academic year because we didn't start school that year until the semester didn't start probably till like October, almost November. It was later that year that we didn't get, we wasn't able to start at our normal time. So we was about a month and a half off. And then when we started, we didn't have space. Like I said, some of the kids were in the hotels and things like that because the rooms were not ready. We still did not have, we didn't have air at one point. So that was an issue because, of course, it was hot. But we wasn't starting class either, so you didn't have to be in the dorms yet. So that's what I'm saying. By the time we actually started class, they had utilities and things working properly. And this was 1990 actually. So still pretty much having real winters back then. So it got cool. It was supposed to get cool. So, that worked out very well. By the time we really started class October, I'm like, oh, okay, we don't even need, as long as you had your window up and whatever, it was, so.
And for those listening, sorry to cut you off, but just for those listening, what Ms. Wilkerson just said, yeah, we hit 80 degrees in winter in Dallas these days. So that's what she meant by we had real winters back then.
Right.
Dr. Robinson, in terms of buildings and landmarks and faculty or anything else that comes to mind, what remains physically of Bishop today on Paul Quinn's campus?
The chapel and the Zell Library, and of course the architecture of that student union building is just grand and wondrous. Just
it is
real. It's stunning. The columns and what have you, and then you have the creeks and the hills on the campus and a lot of vegetation, and it's just a beautiful campus. And just walking across that bridge from the chapel down to the other side of the campus, it was just nice. It was a nice small, well, it really was a small campus. But the part of the campus we were occupying was small, but they had hundreds of acres of land over there. But that chapel is a majestic building. It stands up. And even when you're driving on 45 and you look over in that direction, you can see that chapel. It stands out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dr. Robinson, what would you say is Bishop's legacy in Dallas as well as for Texas HBCUs?
Oh, Bishop was known for turning out phenomenal preachers.
Yes, they did.
About 10 years ago, all four of the National Baptist Convention had Bishop College graduates as their president at one time.
Wow.
And we've had some outstanding preachers. For instance, L.K. Williams, who was killed in a plane crash in 1941. He was pastor in Chicago at the time. He was a Bishop College graduate, and he was president of the World Baptist Alliance, in addition to being president of the National Baptist Convention. And you can go on and on and on about the outstanding preachers that Bishop put out. But the other thing about Bishop in terms of his contribution to Texas, it was one of the leading institutions. Bishop was one of the strongest, if not the strongest, of the private schools that were here, because Dr. Curry was getting that money in like mad. And the campus that Paul Quinn inherited was built up from 1961 until the time we closed. So every building, every brick on that campus was done by Dr. Curry, who was president from 52 to 1979, and did an outstanding job there. So Bishop will be known for turning out leaders in Dallas. Before Bishop came, there was no black college here, and you can trace the history of these black colleges in these communities. Wherever you had them, they produced leaders. And if you look at the DISD, we had a lot of people who were principals in the administrative position. And I didn't realize that until after Bishop had closed, that there were so many people who were Bishop College graduates in key positions in the Dallas and the.
Well, Dr. Robinson, I understand, of course, as a teacher college, why Bishop was so influential in DISD, but I've always wondered, and maybe you can perhaps shed light as to how Bishop came to churn out so many well-known and highly regarded preachers. And I'm saying that because my wife and I were married by a Bishop alum, Reverend S.C. Nash. I've always known about the Bishop preachers. How did Bishop become a preacher college or pseudo seminary, so to speak?
They had a strong religion department traditionally. Jesse J. McNeil's father was dean of the School of Religion at one time. And when Bishop closed, 70% of the faculty had terminal degrees. And that was unusual for a small black college to have 70% of their faculty with PhDs. And Bishop was pretty strong in that way. And the Department of Religion had people from Yale, Union, part of Columbia, Ivy League, Yale, Ivy League, Dr. Mangrum, Morehouse, University of Chicago, Notre Dame. That's where the faculty came from. Claremont College, Boston University. And they always had a very strong faculty. And it turned out they were ruthless with those students. They just had certain standards. And you can tell a Bishop College graduate or one of their preachers, the development of their sermon, the structure of their sermon, the format of their sermon. You can tell they were Bishop boys and girls.
And Ms. Wilkerson, how has Paul Quinn benefited from being located in Dallas?
I believe we benefited because we got more publicity being here in Dallas because of our location, and we've had local celebs that stepped up, and helped us out different times. Mark Cuban still helps us out. He's still one of our major, he'll even give, I don't know if you know, but basketball tickets to the whole, just 50 of them, or he'll just do different things. Even this last time when Michelle Obama was here, she sent 50 tickets. So it's something about, just being in Dallas just makes us more known to people that even come to Dallas, because I don't know if it's when you, of course, put in what I was in Dallas, Paul Quinn, may be one of the things that does come up. Also, we've gotten a lot of help from local radio personalities. I know you know that, Tom, your dad, Ricky Smiley, Steve Harvey. I mean, they stepped in and did different little things for us or with us, or made our announcements on the radio. If there's nothing else but just getting out what we may be doing on campus or what we're trying to promote at that time. More people, I think, are willing to come to Dallas. Maybe if they're thinking about doing a college, they may not be as have to go to a Waco, Texas. For me, I already had a lot of different friends that were already there, and they told me about it. Other than that, Paul Quinn College was not on my radar, at all. But so I think the recruitment opportunities are better, and we get to go to a lot of different high schools, for our recruitment. To, some people want to go abroad and some people want to stay close to home. So just being able to offer them those, offer them that is a good thing. And also we have more job opportunities, more job programs, more internships around the DFW Metroplex, maybe Plano or different areas and now with us having a Paul Quinn in Plano. So it just makes it a lot more opportunities for us, for the students.
Dr. Robinson, are you aware of any ways that lost alums can get in contact with the Bishop College Alumni Network?
Yeah, there's several persons. Bobby Moulton, who is the immediate past president of the Alumni Association. Then there's the Reverend Maynard Yates, who is now the president of the Alumni Association. They have a reunion every other year, even numbered year, second weekend in November. And there are some other things. I think during the summer they have a picnic sometime in June or July. They have a lot of activities, and I think some of the proceeds from the alumni go to Paul Quinn for scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just hoping that one day Bishop College can, in a more formal way and a more increased way, support Paul Quinn, because Paul Quinn is all we got. And when we were here at Bishop, we wanted everybody to support us. So I think we're obligated to give it all we got, because that's all we got. That's our only institution. And so we got to support Paul Quinn. And I think Paul Quinn needs to do a stronger job of trying to embrace some of those Bishop College alumni. Because, a lot of those people are not on food stamps. They're retired, they had good
Yeah.
and they might be willing to do something. So I think that some effort should be given to, even if it means making them honorary alumni or something, to bring them into the fold or get some money from them, because I think the money is there, the wealth is there.
I agree.
In closing, both Ms. Wilkerson and Dr. Robinson, and especially along the lines of what Dr. Robinson was just talking about, how can alums of either college support scholarship needs at Paul Quinn on today?
Well, I think one of the things we need to do, and I'm guilty of this, and I'm going to make a concerted effort to get my church to do more and to make a commitment, a budget item to support Paul Quinn every year. We made an effort under some previous administration, but there's no reciprocity in terms of reaching back at us to get it. Because at the time when Bishop was open, our church was the largest contributor or the largest person in the African-American community, I guess, to give to Bishop College. And our pastor was the largest individual contributor to Bishop College. So we have a history of supporting higher education. And right now, we're not supporting anybody. So I plan to make that one of my goals, to see what we can do. I don't know how much we can do, but we need to do something.
And Ms. Wilkerson, how can alums and listeners of this podcast support Paul Quinn scholarship needs?
Well, right now we can definitely go to pqc.edu. And once you go to this, our alumni page comes up and you can just click on Donate Today. It's highlighted.
Welcome back to the new HBCUbiquity. Wow, so much history packed into this episode. First off, I want to thank Dr. Harry Robinson for taking time out of his extremely busy schedule to take us down memory lane for the good and the bad of those last few years at Bishop College. Dr. Robinson is a living encyclopedia of history on Black Dallas, and especially if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you ever get a chance to talk with him, please do. I guarantee, and from personal experience, that you'll learn something new from him with every conversation. Bishop's legacy will always be a part of Dallas and America's HBCUs. At the time of its closing, Bishop College was still generating millions of dollars for the local economy, as it was the largest minority employer in Dallas. Also, thanks to Ms. Nicole Wilkerson for her time and insight into that pivotal time in Paul Quinn's history. Since relocating to the Bishop campus in Dallas, Paul Quinn College has thrived, to say the least. And that's in no small part due to the vision of its current president, Dr. Michael Sorrell. So what has he done at Paul Quinn, you might ask? Well, besides establishing the We Over Me farm on the campus, which provides produce to hundreds of surrounding homes and dozens of Dallas-Fort Worth businesses, including Jerry Jones's Cowboy Stadium, Paul Quinn is the first HBCU in America to be recognized as an accredited work college, which means that students are able to pay off their tuition through working on and for the campus. So how's that for out-of-the-box solutions? Speaking of HBCU work colleges, shout out to Knoxville College. And Paul Quinn is expanding. A little over a year ago, Dr. Sorrell and the college established a new campus, Paul Quinn Plano. Google it and check it out when you get a chance. I guess that the lesson to be learned from this one is one that's repeated often on this podcast. Stay informed as to what's happening with your HBCU alma mater and support monetarily or however you can, when you can. We cannot and must not let any more of our institutions close. Thank you for listening to this episode, and please come back on next week for another one. I'm Thomas Joyner Jr., and thank you for being a part of the new HBCUbiquity.
Sign up and be a part of the team. Be a PodoTron at PodoTron.com. Thank you for listening to PodoTron.